Fans of Paul McCartney are getting a closer look at the musician's life in a new documentary, but the story starts after the breakup with the Beatles.
So joining us live to talk about Paul McCartney, Man on the Run, Oscar-winning director Morgan Neville joining us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good talking to you.
You as well. Okay, so let's get into how you got this documentary to begin with. I mean, Sir Paul McCartney, my goodness, I'm sure the people were clamoring to tell this story.
Yeah, I got a call from his manager and said Paul was interested in revisiting the Wings period of time.
Yeah.
Was I interested? And 10 seconds later, I said, yes, absolutely.
It took you 10?
Yeah, it took me, maybe it wasn't even 10 seconds, but I've been a Beatles fan my entire life, and a Wings fan and a Paul fan, and I feel like I've been preparing for this film forever. But Paul gave me complete leeway, and when I sat down with him, I said, I think the film really begins the moment the Beatles break up, because that's the beginning of the story. You know, that moment when the thing that he loves the most, that's been his entire life since he was 16, disappears, and suddenly he has to answer all these big questions about who am I as an artist and as a person.
Do you get the sense he was sad about the breakup? He would have preferred to continue?
Oh, yeah. John Lennon said that Paul was the one that wanted the Beatles the most. And if you watch Get Back, Peter Jackson's documentary, you see Paul, songs are pouring out of him and he's driving to keep it going. But I think everybody was heartbroken. The fans were heartbroken, the critics, and the band to some extent too, definitely Paul. And it comes out kind of in anger. You know, people, the attitude you see in the documentary, that people are constantly saying, why can't you just be the Beatles? Why can't you get back together? You know, what's the matter with you? And the reviews of all the albums are saying, well, this isn't as good as the Beatles, you know, and Paul struggles with this. Part of this film is really about Paul struggling with the shadow of the Beatles. That's why I called the film Man on the Run, is he's trying to escape the gravitational pull of the Beatles, and that's an impossible thing.
Well, you talked to a lot of people, a laundry list of people to get all of this content out, including Linda McCartney. Who all did you talk to for this documentary?
Well, you know, Paul extensively, but every member of Wings, the band he had, giving them, you know, all chance to talk. But, you know, everybody from Mick Jagger to Chrissie Hynde, who became a good friend of Linda's and of Paul's, the children, Stella and Mary, Sean Lennon, really to talk about his dad. And Sean says some beautiful things in the film. So, you know, I really wanted to get a tapestry of all these different voices to really understand dimensionally what Paul went through. And it's really an emotional story first, you know, more than just a kind of, you know, retelling of the albums.
One of the things about Paul McCartney that I find fascinating is when you step back and look, he has been one of the most famous people on the planet for the vast majority of his life. I mean, at this point, he only has a fraction of his life where he wasn't world famous. As you sat down and you talked to him and you spent time with him, what is your sense on how it shaped his personality? Because he's been in the spotlight always.
He has. I think Paul McCartney is very good at making you forget he's Paul McCartney, because he has been famous for so long. I think he really wants to just have a real conversation, you know, and that was kind of my job then, was to take off my fan hat and just really try and explore kind of what he went through, and to go deeper too, you know, not just the kind of usual stories, but to really kind of unpack and at times show him things I found, or, you know, read him quotes I found and play him music. And so getting him to really get in the headspace of this time, because on the one hand, it was the best of times for him. It's when he had his new family. He was just married. He suddenly has, you know, kind of an instant family. But it was the worst of times too, because you know, he ended up having to sue his former bandmates and the Beatles just to extricate himself from the legal entanglements of Apple Music. And, you know, he was just out of sync with what people wanted at the time. But that music he wrote is timeless. And now I think it's actually some of the best music he ever wrote.
Morgan, what a fantastic story. We can't wait to see the whole thing. It's going to premiere on Friday on Prime. Thank you so much for your time. It's Paul McCartney, Man on the Run, the award-winning director behind it. Thanks, Morgan.
Great talking to you.
You as well.
I just can't like that idea that he's been famous since he was like 22 years
Yeah.
old. Like world famous.
And obviously, we've never met him, but he seems so normal.
He does.
To have been famous his whole life. He seems super well adjusted.
But we talked about things like he's probably never gone grocery shopping, or at least not in the last 70 years.
Not
You
as an
gotta say.
adult. Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's a
crazy.
trip.
Yeah.
Such a trip.